Hello, beautiful souls. It's interesting because YouTube put the preview thing on there, and I don't know. Everyone I've experienced it in other people's videos, it's a period where you can't hear anything in the beginning. Why? I don't know. Sometimes that's life, isn't it? Like, we try something new, and sometimes it works really, really well, and other times there's some learning to be done along the way until we get the results we want. Many things on my mind this morning. We're lucky enough that somebody covered the room until Tuesday. Still am waiting to hear back from several agencies and what do you call it? Important persons, so that we can figure out if we how soon we can get out of here. We're kind of stuck in a weird middle ground because I don't even know what to say. Like, I have some friends helping. What I really feel like is, please, benevolent spirit, can you help me get my tarot and astrology going really, really strong? Because that's where I'm short, is in the work end. And you know what's funny is I think back and like I look back at my life and think about all the different jobs I worked. I worked a lot of jobs. There's only two things previously that made it a challenge. Well, three things. One, I grew up with a mom and her two sisters who cried almost every day after work. They worked at banks. They said that they got yelled at every day, and there was hardly ever anything good that would happen. And it's funny, as an adult, I realized that they were stuck in victim consciousness, and a lot of that was bullshit. Not that they didn't go through hard things. It's just they were going off their conditioning. And I mean, there's a kid recently that I talked to that expressed feelings that I know a lot of kids feel, which we're afraid to work. That's what the kids are saying, because think about how us adults are talking about it. We act like work is slavery, and we talk about how it's such a burden, and we do all this stuff. And I'm not saying those feelings are not valid here and there, but think about the impression that we're giving to the current generation of, teens that should be ready to work, right? If they've grown up with us constantly juggling bills, and then on top of that we're not grateful and we don't see any good in any of it, why would they want to? Like, I totally empathize with that. So that's first point that got in the way a lot. Is when I grew up, I was like, I never want to work a job that makes me cry every day, that makes my body hurt every day, that I would come home and complain about every day. Like, and I don't regret deciding to do that. I know a lot of people that do still do that, but it's funny because of that. I was talking with a friend who came and helped me with the Explorer. They helped me get it off Casino Road, put a starter in it, check some things out. I got to put some new terminals on it today, but otherwise, it's pretty good. It's a nice little green car. Well, a little big green car. It's an Explorer, so it's not exactly little, but it's little in comparison to other SUVs. And that's okay. I like it. It's like me. I'm big little or little big. But we were talking about how, like, he said something about rage quitting jobs, which is a reference to, it's funny, it actually goes as far back as Halo on Xbox, which is kind of a thing in my generation. I don't know how many of you watching got into that, but it's like, if you have somebody that's so good that they're taking you out and you keep having to respawn, and then you just like rage quit, you know. But I laugh because there's so much energy right now where we're returning to 90s type things. I mean, there's 90s reboots of shows, there's 90s remixes of songs, there's a lot of 80s 90s references, which, I mean, if you've been watching the spiral cycles in your own way, probably not surprised. Like, I'm not surprised, though it still is kind of one of those pleasantly surprising expectations of sorts. But we were talking about that with jobs, like rage quitting jobs. Now, I have not rage quit a job in a long time. And part of that is because the second thing that got me with work was that, I mean, I was very much conditioned growing up to be codependent. And so when I met my DM, and then 4 years later when we got into official relationship, I like, if the job I worked took me away too much and he wasn't happy, I'd come back home. Or if it was too much for him to work and do certain things with the kids, and because he was codependent to his family, so he was trying to support his sisters and his daughter and everything else like that. And then I'm trying to support us so that we don't fall apart and taking all the flack from that. And if the job didn't pay enough or if, it caused trouble between us, I'd quit it. And then there was a couple that I did kind of rage quit because it turned into situations where I was giving far more than was necessary. I got ahead, and then somehow there'd be like a coup to oust me. Usually because I was unaware that I was interrupting some sort of plan that they had, and they needed it to look bad. I don't really fully understand it. Anyways, the I finally got to the point where it was like, between with my neurodivergence and my like the thing I talked about with the friend is like I'm not likely to rage quit a job because of me. I'm more likely to rage quit a job when there's injustices to other people. Like when I worked at the Jack in the Box, they specifically told me they wanted me to hire just breathing bodies and make sure they did not get more than 30 hours a week, preferably less, like 15 hours a week, so they didn't have to pay insurance, which just pissed me off. It's like, you know what? That should not be a situation we're in the first place. But, for one thing, you're doing incredibly huge injustices to the people there, and you're doing more injustice to the people who have been here, who know what they're doing, who deserve raises, who I would be much better off running this place with just under the amount of people I need if all the people I have can get overtime. You know what I mean? Like, there are people that are happy to do that, and I fought really, really hard to make sure we had enough people because the place was falling apart because we didn't have enough people. So, and the only place you can, not that you can give, but the only place that could be taken from without meaning more harm to the employees was maintenance. And that was not a good situation. And the more that I fought for it and the more that I fought for my employees, the harder my district manager made it. I still laugh at that one though because the way that she ousted me, and I just stood in my integrity and didn't ask for anything beyond that. Like 15 employees quit, and they had a total of like 5 or 6 people for a couple of months trying to run a Jack in the Box in the middle of Bellevue. I don't normally laugh when others go through pain, but that gave me some giggles because I mean, that shows you, like, everybody there quit and went to Taco Time. It's like, if you're taking her out that way, like, we can see where the problems are coming from. And I was really, really proud of them. Even though, like, I mean, anyways. So, like, it is incredibly hard for me to be at a job where I see other people going through injustices. And that connects to my neurodivergence, too. I have very, very good self control. And especially over the last couple of years, I've really, really developed my emotional stability. So it's not as big of a challenge as it was, but it still is a challenge. And so trying to find work where people have decent boundaries, so that if nothing else, the bosses up above are doing what it takes to have at least an emotionally secure work environment. That's a challenge. Then adding in my neurodivergence. The funny thing is, I think being a Capricorn, having Capricorn stellium kind of outranks that too a bit. Like in my day to day life, I get some challenges in executive functioning, which is like the biggest ones for me is like I could have a list of like 10 things that I know are all important and should be done immediately. But then, what order do you do them in so that they all get done, so that there isn't anything forgotten about, and like there isn't something like half done? And I swear, all my life, even with my therapist and stuff, I've asked everybody, how do you put things in an order? And what I've really learned is that even neurotypicals they don't have to think about that so much. We typically develop our executive functioning between like 18 and 25. And I mean, I won't say that the ways that they develop theirs were necessarily healthy, but they get things done in the ways that they do. And so it's challenging to be like, to try to explain the problem and then to get healthy answers that don't require, we'll just have a schedule book, or just do, just do it this way. That works well for a lot of people. I'm not knocking on it, but I've got like back at the Yellow House, I got piles of planners. They do work well for a while, but then like what happens when you lose one? And you can't spend like a day trying to find it. Then you get a new one, and then you try to do that one until you lose it. Like, these are common challenges with executive functioning. Now, funny enough, once I'm in a job, like, I don't have challenges with that, but usually because the order is already laid out. You do it this way and that way and this way and this way. And for whatever reason, when I'm in a job, I can usually see the patterns of, like, this is important to that person who does prep, or this is important to that person who's gathering information, or this is important to that person who runs supplies and inventory, and then I can figure that out. I don't really know why the day-to-day stuff is different than the work stuff for me. There's something in it that I'm seeking clarity in. And then, last but not least, dun dun dun, is osteoarthritis, because in the past, I've never had a problem getting a job. Like, there's plenty of jobs to be had. Problem is, most of the jobs that I've done in the past that I could get right now that I'm fully trained for are construction jobs and customer service jobs. And then on top of that, because of allergic reactions, I can't get the vaccine. So I can't, I'm also trained. I was certified as a CNA for many years. I could go do work with the elderly and stuff like that, but you can't unless you can get vaccinated. So with the osteoarthritis and that stuff in there, it's like I could start going and working, say fast food or housekeeping or any number of things like that. But if I'm not careful and I'm not measured about how much time that I put into it, it will take a toll on my body. Which is where this morning I was like, I don't know. I can tell when my osteoarthritis is getting to a point to where I really should be mostly just resting when I start dropping things. Or when I'm walking and my knee starts to go out a little bit. And usually that's when it's cold, and it is cold right now. And so I've been looking for the clarity on what to do in that front, because getting an apartment anywhere in Washington for the most part requires that you have had a job for usually at least 3 months. Sometimes you can get flexible and you can get in with somebody or you can get in with a month worth of a job. But even at that, you have to have a job that equals 3 times the amount of rent, which is challenging because we keep raising the minimum wage, which is good, but then the cost of living goes up with it. So, single mom, right now I only have my 16-year-old with me, but I need safe space for my 10-year-old. He is with his dad, my DM, who is not in a stable position either, and probably more unstable than I am. He still has his house, but who knows for how long. He's already pulled loans to try to cover the rent, and I've been through that situation with him and with others. It's only a matter of time. Now, which isn't to say that I don't believe it. He's just got too many, as he calls them, leeches trying to pull from him. And so I've got to try to figure out how to get a place to rent. I know, here's the irony. I was telling my 16-year-old, I said, the complication is that if we had enough money, it wouldn't be that hard to talk a landlord into renting to us. But one, where does the rest of the money come in so that we're not relying on everybody forever? You know what I mean? Money is finite, and we've got some people that are donating to a certain degree, but it's to get us into a place. So where's the middle ground in there, and the funny thing is if we had like not four people, if we had like, I've got almost 2,000 subscribers here. Hello to all of you. And I have hundreds of friends on my Facebook. I had more, but I just reset the whole thing. I was like, just everybody off. We'll see. We'll just clear the space like I do with my altar, and then see what happens. And of the people who come back in, not many of them have a lot of money, and I'm not mad at it. But think about it, like, if between all my social medias we have like 2,000 people, let's say, if each of them was to donate $4, we would have enough to be able to pay first, last, and deposit. Challenges, a lot of people only see these things, they see them at separate times. So, like, if you were to send me $4 right now, which, I mean, yes, please, I'll be grateful for that too. But if it only came in like one at a time, that might have to go to gas to try to do some door dashing, or that might have to go to trying to get my son to therapy or school and things like that. Like, it would all need to kind of flow in a similar timeline, you know what I mean, like within a week or something, to go, okay, it's coming in, and we can put this towards this and this, right? And it wouldn't even take that much. That's just what I was saying, is like, if you have 1,000 people that all donated $4, you'd have $4,000, right? And but the hard thing is looking at the economy too. Like, I want to stay in Washington. The schools are better. I was gonna say that the welfare support was better, but because we have a lot of people up here, from the destruction of Hurricane Ida in the southern states, and then we already had Seattle increasing the homelessness population and stuff, and then we have other places that are sending people over. It's limited. Like, they told me, if we're living in a car for 2 weeks, then we can get housing, or we can get into a program of housing. That's what they were saying. And then, if we, if I'm lucky, I might qualify for $550 a month from them, where I would likely have to give up the $300 in child support that I get. And then that's only if we're not like sleeping on anybody's floor, or share or roommating with anybody, because they will count the income of the people we're staying with against the amount that I make, even if they're complete strangers and all they're doing is offering a floor to sleep on. Like, and that is complicated. And then on top of that, like, the places that were supposed to offer like hotel vouchers and stuff, they don't do it anymore. Or they're out, or the money is thin because it's the holiday season and they typically use up more then. And then the other places that we're supposed to be able to get through to are either closed, like Habitat for Humanity, things like that, they're closed. And the funny thing is, it leads me back into the plan that I was trying to go for many, many years before we even moved in with my parents and then got kicked out from them, which was get land. Because at least if we have land that is mine, I can build on it. You know what I mean? And like, I'm not afraid to to dig a hole for pooping and peeing for a while, nor are my kids. And if we got like a shipping container or something like that, we could do solar, we could set up, pellet stove and stuff like that. And because I've been through construction, I know how to do most of it. It's getting the tools, and then just, I mean, I'm slow, especially with osteoarthritis. I'm slow, but my plan for a long time was to get a place, and then, like, come early spring, like, go and camp there. I had an RV at my parents' house, and that could have worked, but it would have to be towed because it needs a master cylinder, and there's some other weirdness going on with that. But um even just a tent would not be bad, because it doesn't take, like, it. When I work construction jobs, like, I mean, if you have 4 or 5 people, you can get at least the framing of a house put up completely, like, with rooms and everything, in a day. And I know that on my own it would take longer than that, but I'm not afraid of the work. And I'm kind of used to going at things mostly alone. It's kind of a common life theme for a Capricorn sun. And, like, to me, having land away from the municipal areas as much as you can be without having a hospital be too far away, it seemed like the smartest thing to do, because you can grow food on it. You can get into agriculture and homestead. There's plenty of ways to get involved with farmers markets. There's ways that you can pretty much live off the land and not need to go into the city so much. And I've been really gifted in my life to be a part of many communities where many people do already do this, and I've seen a lot of really great examples of it. And let's just say that even though my family was a bunch of hoarders, that I still learned a lot about living with very little. It's kind of that thing to where we often go We either go exactly the same as our parents went, or we go opposite until we find a balance. And so, even though I can be a bit cluttery, I I'm intentionally different. I'm intentionally opposite. You know what I mean? And there's some crows out here I'm trying to make friends with. You never know what a crow might know and how a crow might help you. They're very intelligent. I've had some bring me money. I've had some bring me shiny objects that are interesting. You never know. Some act as early warning systems. They'll tell you when danger's on its way and not tell other people, which is really funny. Anyways, so I'm trying to figure out the work thing, the money thing. I mean, I started this channel 22 months ago after I told my DM, my kid's dad, that he needed to go and find himself. He needed to go grow up, get out of his codependent situations, learn his lessons. And that's another complication. I feel bad because my son, our oldest son, reached out to him, and he wanted. I mean, he's not wrong. You know, it's his dad, and he should be wanting to help him, if nothing else. But the pirating that I did on Facebook and on YouTube, in order to both give us protection in case anybody tried anything, and to be able to have information in several locations that could not just be gotten rid of through, like, say, reporting or something like that. He's definitely upset about it. Though I'm not so upset that, like, I did the right thing. I was releasing what needed to be released in order to let him go in the 3D, and a lot of that required releasing a lot of his family, and apparently my family. I wasn't quite expecting that, but it did happen. I don't think a lot of those people realize, like, I think I don't know that they were consciously keeping us, like, it was together and apart, and they've been doing it for years. It's not just during separation. It just became more obvious that it was that, like, it's like they didn't want us to be together, but they also didn't want us as individuals to separate from them. And there's a lot of manipulation on all around. And that's effectively what I talked about. So now it was part of, a spiritual lesson that Spirit taught me, which is treat adults like adults. And I realized I had not been treating my DM like an adult. And a large part of it is because a lot of his shadows and a lot of the people he's connected to, they are scary. And they do have a lot of challenges that make it complicated to say, hey, you're really emotionally unstable. I'm trying to develop emotional stability. I'm trying to do the best for my kids and my family. I'm going to release you for a while because you got your own stuff to figure out. And they don't like that. It removes power and it makes them feel like they have stuff to work on. And apparently that's really insulting. However, my oldest son had had some more positive interactions with him, but then he was being more immature and leaning into the threat side of karmics and stuff like that. And our oldest had asked him to be more mature, and he said, well, I don't know what you're looking for in terms of me being. One of the things our oldest said is, like, it would be nice if you would at least help us. Like, I don't like being homeless and stuff, and it would be nice if you do this. And I discouraged him from doing that because I knew, in the position that my DM's in, and the fact that his karmic Tina likes to text for him when she doesn't agree with what he might be saying, because she doesn't like him to be too nice. And so the response to blame, treating a 16-year-old like he's an adult, just like they told our 10-year-old Joey, who's with them, that I am his responsibility. A fucking 10-year-old. Sounds like they don't even have the maturity level of our 10-year-old, in my opinion. In any case, it did not go well. And, my kiddo and I sat and thought about how much of that was his dad and how much of that was the pirates. because a lot of it was like, well, you disrespected my karmic and this and this and this and that. My son has not disrespected anybody. I have disrespected some people, but only in the sense that I was getting my self-respect back because they have been sitting there spreading nasty rumors about me that, one, are completely unfounded, and two, why? Like, if you want to sit there and be holier than thou, then what's the purpose in doing any of that? And on top of that, my DM and them have been duplicitous, and they've not been playing characters in their story that they would like people to know them as. And part of my point is, if you wanted a better role in the story, you should act like a better fucking person. It's not rocket science. But it didn't go very well, and there was a lot of like, I care about you, however, this is your fault. You should have stayed with your abusive grandparents, or you should have come over here and stayed in this abusive situation, and we offered it to you, and you didn't take it, so now you're gonna have to deal with it. I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? What happened to empathy? What happened to being a parent? Because a parent is supposed to recognize that, one, sometimes kids make mistakes. I'm not even saying that it was a mistake. Our therapist actually congratulated our son on making a good decision in a very difficult circumstance. And it was a good decision to come and be with me. I am at very least the most emotionally secure of all of the options he had. And if nothing else, I'm looking at the support that I've been getting from you guys and the other communities that I've volunteered with and invested my time in, and I'm fucking grateful for that. You know, like, there's a lot of people that have been asking me, how am I getting support? And in many ways, I could say I don't know, though I know it's because I put my energy into it without any ulterior motives, without like expecting it to be transactional, without expecting, I'd never figured I'd be in this position. Heck, I told one of my friends that, like, I never, like, I was the person that everybody came to when they needed an idea or solution or a brief night to stay or something like that. I never thought to find people like that for me because I don't make friends or have relationships that are based on transactionalism. I've never been like that. And so it was kind of complicated. Like, it's like, I need help now. And even in asking people for help before we ended up literally homeless, I don't think people really thought about it because I'm usually fine. I'm usually the one that figures it out. I'm the rock. I'm the one who can say, here's an idea, or here's a helping hand, or here's a few bucks. Or even just, I will help you with this or that when you get through your own emotional shadows to work through, something like, I never turn a person away just based purely on my lack or anything like that. But now it's complicated even more, and we're trying to figure out. I have a lot of people that are looking at the logic of situations, but the people that I like, trying to be able to see my 10-year-old, who I haven't seen in almost 2 months because the pirates on my DM's end do not want him to have any interaction with me. So they're torn between, I might cast some spell on him, which is like, why? Why would I need to? Or that we might argue. Like, oh, big fucking deal. We were together for 14 and a half years. We argue plenty. Like, it's not the end of the world. And there are infinite ways to be able to connect so that the kids can have time with both of us without having to interact with each other. That was my point 22 months ago. And what really, really gets me is that we were doing just fine. Actually, I think that's what caused the complication. I think that's why his main karmic and the other almost main karmics got upset, because I wasn't being like them. I wasn't playing stupid games with the kids. I didn't have unreasonable expectations for the circumstances, and I wasn't trying to go in after him. I did make some moves in the early beginning when he was just helping a friend and it was just a roommate situation, but he asked me to stop, and I did. When he puts up a boundary, whether I agree with it, whether I know it's going to stay, or whatever thing, typically I observe it. There's a few things that I have trouble with, but I usually observe it because, you know what? That's what you should do, especially with someone you love, but with anybody. Even if you don't agree with the boundaries, observe them, because that's what you would want for you. feel like most of the world is not rocket science, but we all treat it like it is. I don't know. And now I'm sitting here trying to figure out, okay, so donations that came in, I got a lot of stuff that, well, not a lot of stuff. I tried to spend it wisely. I even asked some friends, like, how would you spend it? What would you do with it? And listed out a bunch of things that needed to be done. And now the phone bill is due again, which is my only connection to my youngest son. I'm still trying to figure out how to get him a new phone because the phone that he has is so old that it's usually dead. So even trying to use that to communicate with him is not going well. And I don't want my oldest being any sort of go-between more because there have been times it's like we can't reach my youngest and they're doing their best to make sure that he is constantly busy, just like Karmic did with my DM, so that there isn't time to think about connecting with me or his brother. And I don't know how Spirit's going to work that one out for us, but there's a few people helping me with a few ideas because I don't know. I've turned away help from people that are like, "Well, you have to win. You have to do this. You have to go this way or go that way." And it's like, when you have a win-lose attitude, everybody fucking loses. Like that's the way that it goes. I've watched people do that. That's exactly how my DM got the way that he is. That's how my mom and dad got how they are. That's how my DM's family got the way that they are. I don't want to continue that cycle. That clearly only hurts people, you know? And I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating sitting here trying to figure out money. I know what my heart feels called to do, which is to help people and to do more tarot readings and other stuff. Hello, 69 girl. Yeah, I know their insecurities do show really strongly. And the hard part too is like I've tried to get help from other people. I tried to get help from my DM sister. She said she would help at first because she's the one that told me half the information about the karmic that he's with. But then she talked to their other sister who she tells me that we shouldn't listen to because she's dramatic, but then decides that she's gonna follow her youngest sister's advice to nail my DM's balls to the wall even harder and encourage him to fall and encourage me to take as much of his money as possible and take the kids and do all this shit because he's a spoiled brat. Like, maybe that's not the right way to do it. Maybe it's more fucking pain, and maybe that just increases more problems. Also, I realized they were having a fight through me and him with the person that he's with. And it's like, maybe if we tried warmth and being family, it would go better. Like we can't control who's in relationship with who and we shouldn't want to. You know what? I want to Wow. Anyways, um we're at a hotel where there's usually some interesting characters and stuff, so don't mind the noises if they come about. Either way, like that was the help that I got from his family. My family was pretty much the same as, well, just let him fall and fail, and it's all like, wait till he comes back to you crying. It's like, for one thing, you don't know him very well if you think that that's exactly what he's going to do. I'm not saying that, I mean, he's a cancer man. That's likely to happen in the end, but not if you're somebody that's been sitting there trying to make his life worse. And I know right now that he hasn't even read everything that I had put up. Most of it was in his defense, you know? And but right now he's in scarcity mindset, he's about ready to lose his place too. I know that he already pulled out a loan, and who knows if he can get any other loans either, because the people he's with, they got borderline and various other personality disorders, no self-control, so the money's just spent left and right. And if you try to say no or you try to stand up for yourself, they either threaten to hurt themselves or to hurt you or to make bullshit up about you. Like, I get it. It's not just a simple be a man and get out of it thing. It's not. And anybody who would be in that position that has not been given the time or space or had the ability to take the time and space to heal would be stuck in that. A lot of women and men get stuck in that shit. A lot of people outside the gender binary get stuck in that. Abuse is not attached to gender. And what was it I was saying before? Abuse is not assigned to gender at birth, right? It's not. Anyways, So we're trying to figure out that complication and trying to figure out how to get an apartment. Thank you, 69, babe girl. And trying to figure out the work thing because like this is a challenge that I had before. Like, how do we get me into a place that I'm not going to lose within a few months in terms of the job thing? Like, I'm extremely intelligent, and when I work a job, I'm actually very organized. The challenge is that I don't have a degree that can just walk me into something. And with my osteoarthritis, I mean, the jobs that I'm qualified to just walk into right now and get a reasonably paying job, they would take me down, like physically. And it feels like I'm probably going to have to do that just to get us into a place. But I don't want to have another string of like jobs that I worked for 3 to 6 months and then have to quit and then have to recuperate for who knows how many months trying to get through it from there, right? And something I've been asking everybody is like, one of the few things I have left is my integrity. And the energy in which I do things in. I know plenty of people that are willing to lie. Like, I know plenty of people in my position that would lie and say, well, we are living in a car. They would say we weren't in a hotel and stuff like that. And I'm asking everybody, like, considering what I'm being told by the state, that we can't get housing help until we've been in a car or on the streets for at least a day, and that we have to remain in that situation for at least 2 weeks before we can get a housing coordinator or do things like that. What do I do? Do I lie? I mean, I I do I tell them that I've got a worse situation than I do so I can get more help? That's something that my dad would say. Is like, well, you gotta scream louder or make it seem worse than it is, and that's something that a lot of people from my DM side are. Well, just tell them this or lie about that. I mean, I'm not saying that I'd never even done that in the past, but I don't want to do that anymore. That was part of the whole thing, is speaking my damn truth. Sharing my story, not holding people's secrets. I had a moment where I broke down to a friend the other day. I think it was when I was doing the crying video about like, most of the women that I have seen and the men in my family and in my DM's family, like, I feel like they didn't even really give themselves a chance to do it on their own. They immediately went into what they knew from how they grew up, which is you marry a man who has a lot of money. And you basically live off of that. And then when it comes to supporting yourself, even if you do most of your own support, you still have to have a relationship. And usually then that becomes a whole new codependent mess. So even if you could support yourself, you're then tangled in trying to save them, also being the villain to them, the hero villain victim shit. Or the other options without an actual good job would be sex work or it would be crime. And I'm like, how do I support my family? Just me with my neurodivergence and my osteoarthritis. And how do I support us without doing any of those things? How do I support us without being inauthentic, without being dishonorable, without lying? How do I do it? Like, most of the people that I've run into, that's pretty much how they do it. Like, and then at the same time too, like, I'm an Enneagram type 8. And in combination with my neurodivergence, I do have a very hard time with people that have bad boundaries, especially around kids. Like, I'm not the type of person that can just shut up and watch somebody mistreating their kids or other kids or things like that, or being unhealthy around my kids, because that's the whole fucking reason that when my mom kicked us out, we went, because it's not fair to them and they shouldn't have to grow up in that. So how the fuck do I do I provide stability both emotionally and financially without roommating with somebody that's extremely unstable or caught in codependent cycle, so that even if they're stable on their own, they're bringing in people who make things unstable? How do I do it? How do I get back on my feet in a good energy? Because you know what, even in my own past, I've listened to other people. You know what, I've seen so many people go in and get really high paying jobs they were completely unskilled for. You know how they did it? They lied. And there are some parts of me that it's like, You know, if integrity wasn't a huge thing for me, maybe we'd be better off. I know that even my DM's karmic, like, she didn't get money by any means of honor. There was no honor in any fucking way that she gets it. But now she got my DM paying for his house that he's losing and paying for an apartment for her two oldest kids. And now her brother's in town, so he's probably paying for that shit too. Who fucking knows? And like she's got that, and she's like definitely lying to the state about a bunch of things. And like, I mean, if I'm willing to let go of maybe I could get us ahead. But I just, one, it doesn't feel like me. And two, there's got to be a way. And you know what? I got to listen to some of my favorite elders and just ask benevolent spirit, my benevolent ancestors and guides and allies to help bring me clarity. Like, how do I get us out of the hotels, step above that, and into a stable home environment where it's just me and the kids, and or with somebody who has decent boundaries. Like, it feels like it's not asking a lot, but in this world it feels like it is too. All right, I got to get off of here and answer a call to a friend who's going to help me. So I love you all, and I'll see you next video.